Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar of the new year. I'm Claire Mitchell, and is it open noise? Yep. Okay, this is my first webinar here with Florida Friendly Landscaping. And while we're waiting for everybody to get into the webinar, I was going to ask, and you guys can feel free to respond in the chat box with the cold weather that we've had this winter. What plants in your yard have been most affected? For me, it got my plumbago. I was sad about that because I like my plumbago. So we'll see. We prune it and it might come back. Okay, guys, fire spike. Oh, the orchids. That's got to be sad to lose orchids. Definitely got my basil too. Oh, look, no damage at all. It's almost time to start planting new basil here in Gainesville. So we'll see if we get one more cold snap. And it's time to get our spring gardens on. Okay, we got the chase tree or the vitex and phalaenopsis. Oh my gosh, you had orchids damaged in South Florida too? My goodness.
My banana froze.
Oh no. Do you have pups coming up?
Yeah, there's always more coming up, but I had a large one and it survived all the cold nights until the last one where it actually got below freezing and did it in.
I always feel like at this point, my plants, you gotta survive on your own. So if I am not bringing houseplants in anymore, and I guess we have a starfruit in our backyard, so we cover the starfruit if it gets really cold because we want that starfruit. Okay, what else we have? Papaya. Yeah, it always seems like right before those papayas are about to ripen, a freeze will come. And we have what else? Oh man. Yep, the firebush. That'll get you too. And border weeds, dwarf banana, and some hibiscus. Well, guys, we're gonna wait just a couple more minutes and then we will get started. Oh, that's a good thing. Someone said, repeat the question for people just joining. Well, the question we asked was, with the cold weather, what plants in your yard were most affected by the cold? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started and do a little introduction here. Welcome to the Florida Friendly Landscaping Homeowner Webinar Series. This is a series that usually happens every third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. And my name is Claire Mitchell. I am brand new with FFL, and I'm the statewide education manager. And today we have Dr. Bill Lester, and he will speak with us today about how to spot diseases. We are muting your microphones. And after this initial Q&A session, we're going to be shutting down the Q&As. And if you do have a question, I'm sorry, instead of posting in the chat box like you're doing now, you're going to post it in the Q&A box, and we're going to wait till the end of the presentation to read these questions out. We also have an exit survey at the end of the webinar. And please fill that out for us. That would be very, very helpful to help us guide the programming that we are presenting to y'all, and it lets us know if we're doing a good job. Our next webinar is going to be presented at on March 4th at 11 a.m. This is a makeup webinar for the one that was canceled in January. So we will be joined by Mark Frank then. He's the Associate Collection Manager at the UF Herbarium, and he'll be talking about the houseplant renaissance. So make sure that you show up for that one. Okay, so let's get started with our webinar for today. Today we have Dr. Bill Lester. He is an extension agent specializing in urban and commercial horticulture with UF IFAS Extension in Hernando County. He has a Doctor of Plant Medicine degree from UF, and in this role, he coordinates the Master Gardener program and provides educational outreach on horticultural practices to both residential and commercial audiences. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for the nice introduction. Let me go ahead and start my presentation here. And can you see that okay? Can you hear me okay? I'm just going to assume that you can. Um, so like I
Looks
said,
great,
Claire,
Bill.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Okay, thanks so much for the nice introduction. Going to be talking a little bit about spotting diseases here today. And this is just kind of a general overview, and gonna go over the definition of what exactly plant diseases are, some different ways that we classify or group plant diseases, some ways that you can tell if it's a plant disease or something else. A lot of times diseases can look like herbicide damage, insect damage, obviously cold weather kind of damage like what we've experienced recently. So give you some kind of tips and tricks about how to figure out if it's really a disease. Talk about how plant diseases are treated, and then I have some examples of common diseases near the end, and I will do my very best to show good time management and stay on track here so we have plenty of time for questions at the very end. This picture here you see on the left, these are a couple of oak trees, and if you look down near the ground, they have the brown discoloration on the trunk. This was somebody who called me. It was a new resident in the county, and they said, there's something wrong with our oak trees. We just bought the house and we have all these oak trees in the backyard and they're dying and they look terrible. So I looked at the picture and I said, do you guys have a sprinkler system? They said, yes, we do. I said, do you have the large sprinklers that maybe when they're spraying, they blast the bottom edges of the trees? They said, I'm not sure. Let me check. And they said, yes, we do. So this is an example of really not a disease. This is just physical damage from sprinkler systems. So diseases can be a little tricky to figure out. So the dictionary definition of a plant disease is this: the result of a dynamic, detrimental relationship between an organism that parasitizes or interferes with the normal biological processes of cells or tissue, or both, of a plant. So that's kind of sort of technical there. Now, something to keep in mind is when it comes to plant diseases and plant pathology, a lot of researchers take the view of a plant disease is caused by something living. And that's kind of how I look at it also. So it's going to be something like a fungus or a bacteria or a virus. But to make it more confusing, viruses really aren't alive, but they're kind of alive. We're going to get a little bit more into that. But a lot of other plant pathologists will look at other things like air pollution, low oxygen, extreme heat, cold, like cold weather like we've had recently, drought, flooding. And if they cause problems with the plants, they kind of lump that under plant disease also. So in a lot of texts, classes, if you're reading through a book, sometimes those things are included as plant diseases, but sometimes they're not. So how do we classify diseases? One way that we do that is by the type of pathogen that it is. So to figure out or diagnose it as being a fungus, a bacteria, or a virus. So fungi are members of their own kingdom, the fungal kingdom. And in reality, out of all the different plant diseases you might have to deal with in your yard, about 85% of them are going to be caused by fungi. So that's kind of the most common source of plant diseases. Fungi include things like molds, mildews, rusts, mushrooms. You know, mushrooms, whether they pop up in your yard, or a shelf fungus like a mushroom growing on the side of a tree, are caused by fungi. And fungi can be blown in the wind, so they make spores. That's how they reproduce and spread. So they can be windborne. Fungi can be in soil. They can be physically moved, and they're able to penetrate plant cuticles on their own. So if you have a plant and the plant has a leaf and a fungal spore lands on the leaf, when it germinates or emerges, it has ways of punching a hole through the leaf, getting into the leaf, and causing a disease that way. Most fungi really require and thrive on high humidity, free water, which is just physical water on a leaf or on a plant, and warm temperatures. And when do we have all those things? Lots of humidity, warm temperatures, lots of water during the summer here in Florida. So we tend to have our biggest problems with fungal diseases during the warmer times of the year and far fewer problems during the colder times of the year. So fungi are very diverse and widespread. Fungi make little filaments. You can kind of think of them as roots, although they are not roots, but they do kind of the same thing as roots do in plants. So they form filaments or hyphae, and they kind of merge into large groups that are called mycelium. The picture on the right there is under a microscope, a fungal mycelium. And fungi are identified by their reproductive structures. So a lot of times fungi, you're going to have to send it to the University of Florida's Plant Disease Clinic, and I have a link coming up for them. And what they do is they take samples of the plant that's infected, put it in a petri dish, get the fungus to grow, and then take a sample of it, look at it under a microscope, and what they're looking for is the reproductive structures or the spores, and that's how they identify them. There's about 100,000 different species of fungi that we know of, and I'm sure there's still plenty that we don't know of that have not been identified or described, and most of them are saprophytes. Most fungi are going to feed on dead things. Fungi are very important in composting, in decomposition, out in nature, but there are about 8,000 different species of fungi that are pathogenic, which means they cause diseases. So you're going to look for the signs of them. So fungal diseases, the fungi can reproduce by both sexual and asexual means. They, like I said earlier, they're spread a lot of different ways. Some people will ask, well, how can I avoid plant diseases? What can I do to kind of protect my yard from them? With a lot of fungi, there's not a whole lot you could do. The spores blow in the wind. They're out there. They're going to land in your yard, my yard. They're all over the place. Fungi, on top of that, will produce specialized cells called sclerotia that are very, very hardened, and they're very well protected against extreme heat, extreme cold, extreme pH, fungicides, a lot of other things. It's like a little very, very hardened cell that can overwinter and lay dormant in the soil, sometimes for many, many years. And then under the right conditions, when it senses the correct plant is growing near it, boom, it emerges and comes out to spread diseases once again. So there are other things that we kind of lump underneath fungal diseases, which sometimes are in the fungal kingdom, other times aren't. Depends on where the scientists, where their line of thinking is at the moment. Things like downy mildews, Pythium and Phytophthora are water molds, club roots. There's a lot of different things that are kind of lumped into the general heading of fungal diseases. So all diseases have things called signs and symptoms. So if you carefully observe a plant that you think has a disease and you're very observant and you know what to look for, just by what you see is really going to help you narrow down what your disease maybe is and what it probably isn't. Because the key behind this is take it and narrow it down tighter and tighter until you can eliminate everything except for the disease that it is. So a sign is an actual physical part of that organism. So it could be the fungal mycelium, the little threads that I mentioned earlier, or an actual bacteria, or some things that that organism is actually doing. Symptoms is the effect that that pathogen is having on the plant. So some examples of symptoms are going to be wilting, yellowing, the leaves dying, the plant falling over, the impact that the disease is having on the plant. So Initially, some symptoms of plant diseases can be your plants appear off color. They're not a healthy green. They might be a light green. They might be yellowish. They might be turning brown. They might be weakened and more susceptible to attack from insects and other things out in the environment. Like I said, wilting and dieback. Younger plants, a lot of times, are killed very quickly. They're very small, not able to protect themselves very well. Older plants or trees, if they develop a fungal disease, it might take a while or maybe even years for the disease to progress bit by bit by bit until it actually kills the trees. Roots, if the fungus or the disease is affecting the roots, they might be brown, they might be absent, they might be slimy or breaking down. Stems can have brownish streaks in them. So there's a lot of different symptoms that plant diseases can cause. Here are some pictures. In the upper left-hand corner is a banana. You can see the lower trunk of that is off-colored. That's because it has a fungus that's now inside of it and causing that discoloration. Something very, very common, especially with fungal diseases, the bottom right-hand corner, the new growth is going to get leaf spots, it's going to get brown, it's going to get discolored, it's going to wilt. Bottom left-hand corner is a disease outbreak that you see in a field, possibly a farmer's field or a very large vegetable garden. So these are all things that you're going to look for. Here is a very good example of a very, very common fungal disease. And this is botrytis that causes disease called gray mold. Very, very common in greenhouse production of vegetables. Tomatoes get it, cucumbers get it, peppers get it. So here's the picture on the left is a picture of a tomato that actually has it on the outside. You could look at this and go like, oh, I'm not sure what that is. It's some kind of mold. It might be a bacteria, might be a fungus. And from just looking at it, yeah, I couldn't tell exactly what it is either. But if you take a sample of it and put it under a compound microscope, what you see is the picture on the right-hand side here, and it makes little clusters of spores that look like little clusters of grapes. And this is very, very distinctive if you're looking at fungi underneath a microscope, and any plant pathologist is going to be able to tell right away, oh, that's botrytis. Nothing looks exactly like that. So a lot of times taking samples using a microscope is going to be a very easy way to figure out not just that it is a fungus, but exactly what fungus it is. So bacteria. Bacteria cause plant diseases also, and bacteria also have their own kingdom. They can be very difficult to control because there's not a whole lot of different chemical controls out there that's going to help protect your plant or fix your plant if it develops a bacterial disease. But fortunately, bacteria aren't nearly as common as fungi. As a general rule, if the plant that you're dealing with is very susceptible to a certain bacterial disease, maybe bacteria diseases are the number one problem for you. So it really depends. Bacteria cannot penetrate plants like some fungi can. So bacteria will normally sit on the outside of the plant. You'd be amazed at just how much damage plants get out in the environment. The wind blows, storms come, twigs blow around, things bump up against the plants. If leaves get little rips or tears or damage to them, that's a perfect way for bacteria to get into your plant now. Insects, many insects will feed by poking holes in your plant leaves, maybe too small for you to even see. That's a great way for bacteria to get in also. Leaves, remember, on the bottom side have stomata, which is how leaves basically breathe. It's there for gas exchange, the carbon dioxide to come in, the oxygen to come out. Bacteria will get in that way also. And bacteria have to be kept moist to exist. Bacteria do not survive well in really dry situations. So bacteria get moved very, very well in aerosols or blowing water. So like I said, bacterial diseases are less common than fungal diseases. Bacteria can be parasites, which means it's something that's going to prey on and damage a living organism. Human beings, you know that we are susceptible to certain bacteria. plants are susceptible to other species of bacteria. They can be saprobes, which means that the bacteria feeds on dead, decaying organic matter, or autotrophs. Some bacteria actually have chlorophyll in them, and they can use sunlight to form their own energy and their own food. So if your plant has a bacterial disease, some of the symptoms that it can cause would be cankers, wilts, shoot blights, leaf spots, scabs, soft rots, and galls. We're going to look at all of them and what exactly they are in just a moment here. But for bacteria, your plant does need some kind of wound or natural opening for the bacteria to get in. And cultural methods usually include cultural in nature. So even though antibiotics work very well to discourage and kill certain bacteria, we use those in humans. We don't generally use them in plants outdoors, although there's a couple instances where we are using antibiotics now on fairly large scale. So bacterial diseases, a bacterial gall is a case where a bacterial is going to make a toxic material that causes plant disease or plant tissue to swell and get really large. This is going to be a swollen section of a root or a stem or a leaf on a plant. Bacterial leaf spot diseases is going to cause a dark, either yellow or brown or black spot on leaves, but fungi do the exact same thing. And from just looking at them, it's really hard to tell the difference between the two. One way to tell or get an indication that your problem is a bacteria instead of a fungus, bacteria, when they affect a plant and they're doing their thing, they cause water soaking and sliminess, and a lot of times they smell bad because bacteria are going to give off certain toxic substances as waste products. So think something goes bad in your refrigerator. If it's a bacteria that caused it, it's probably going to be pretty smelly when you discover it and pull it out or open the container. And refrigerator diseases a lot of times can be bacteria. If it's a fungus, it's generally not very smelly and not really wet or slimy on a plant. So that kind of helps you to narrow things down a little bit also. So viruses are technically not really alive, so they don't have their own kingdom, but we do kind of divide up and organize viruses into different groups, different classifications, different buckets, if you will, of viruses. Even one large group of viruses are coronaviruses. So there's a number of different specific viruses that are considered coronaviruses. That's basically the family of viruses they fall under. Viruses are nothing but a strand of either DNA or RNA surrounded by a protein coat, and that's it. They don't have separate cells. They don't have cellular components. They don't sexually reproduce. They replicate, which we're not going to get too deep into viruses here and how they replicate. That is a pretty confusing topic. But some viruses are very important, specific crops of specific plants. Other viruses will just cause really unusual symptoms in plants, and they don't kill the plant. They just might make it turn a different color or a different shape, or it's twisted or distorted, but the plant doesn't die. So a good example of that is tulip breaking virus. And this is a very common virus that for people who grow tulips, which we don't grow them here in Florida, this is just a good example. Keep in mind, they grow lots and lots of tulips, and they have for hundreds of years over in Holland. And this virus, they had an outbreak of it several hundred years ago before people had any idea even what a virus is. And what it does is it causes symptoms. The flowers, the petals on it, instead of being red or yellow or pink or one specific color, it's striped, different colors, maybe purple and white or red and white. And people looked at this like, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful tulip here. And people who had issues with these viruses became fabulously wealthy because now everybody wanted to buy their new variety of tulip. It wasn't a new variety, it was just a tulip that was infected with a virus. And the virus didn't kill the tulips, it made them not get as large. They were a little bit unthrifty, they were a little bit sickly, but it didn't kill them. They would still grow, they'd still flower. And now you have this beautiful striped flower. You were the only one in Holland that had it. Tulip bulbs were huge business a couple hundred years ago in Holland. People become fabulously wealthy or broke because of them. So viruses are submicroscopic entities that infect individual plant host plant cells. They are obligate parasites. So viruses can only replicate themselves within a living host, and it has to be the proper host for that virus. In the infected plant, sometimes production of chlorophyll will cease. So the leaves or parts of the plant that should be green will turn yellow and then brown. The cells may either grow and divide very rapidly or maybe grow very slowly. So a lot of times you'll have leaves and sections of the plant be stunted or very, very small or very, very large. So viruses cause really bizarre symptoms. Here's some pictures of what viruses look like. And viruses, you will never see signs of them because you and I don't have good enough eyesight. Normal microscopes, you can't even see them. You need an electron microscope, and that's what these viral particles were put under, that magnifies them like 100,000 times where we can actually see them. So a lot of times when we're diagnosing viruses, because none of us has electron microscopes, a lot of times we don't even look at them under a microscope. There's other ways to figure out whether you have a viral problem or not. So with plant viruses, there's at least 400 different viruses that infect plants. Some of them are very economically important. Other ones, not so much, because it's a virus that infects maybe a weed or a native plant or something that just grows by the side of the road. So even though we might notice it and describe it, it's not really economically important. Something very important to remember with viruses is there is no way to control them. If your plant gets a virus, it's there forever. There's nothing to spray, nothing to treat it with, nothing that you could do about it. The vast majority of the time, viruses are transmitted to plants by living factors. So they're vectored by either insects, sometimes mites, sometimes fungi can actually move viruses from plant to plant, and nematodes, microscopic roundworms that live in the soil, there's one or two viruses that they can vector and transmit also. And sometimes the virus will actually stay in the plant will flower, it will set seeds, and if you test the seeds will already be infected with the virus also. This has caused huge problems in the past with, I believe, lettuce seeds and watermelon seeds over the years. There were viral outbreaks that actually stayed in the seeds, and now seed producers had to go to very, big lengths to test the seeds to make sure the seeds that they're selling weren't already pre-infected with a virus. So here's some pictures of some things that viruses can do to plants. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner, those are squash that are now kind of deformed and bumpy. Sometimes the leaves are a lot bigger than they should be. Sometimes they're very, very tiny and stunted and distorted. Ring spot viruses will cause, if you look at a leaf or a fruit, there's I think it looks like a little comma, and it almost looks like papaya ring spot will cause ring spots on your papayas. So if you have a papaya that's infected with it, it looks like somebody took your papaya and took a pen and just started drawing little commas on it. So like I said, viral diseases can be really unusual, really distinct, and if you're not familiar with them, kind of confusing as to what it is. So how else do we classify plant diseases? Another common way that we describe them or diagnose them is by the types of symptoms that that disease causes. So we'll talk about leaf spot diseases, blights, root rots, branch and stem girdling, chlorosis, which is yellowing. And here is a diagram of a stereotypical plant. On the left, you see all the different things that a normal healthy plant is going to do between the roots, taking up water, minerals, nutrients, the leaves performing photosynthesis, the fruits, everything else a normal healthy plant does. And on the right, some examples of different symptoms and ways that we kind of group and classify diseases. If it's There are certain diseases that attack the roots, they frequently cause root rots. A lot of other diseases, usually bacterial and fungal, cause spots on the leaves. We call them leaf spots. If you have a lot of leaf spots and they all start to merge together, we call that a leaf blight. There's a kind of a gray area between, I think it's still a leaf spot. You might think it's a blight. There really is no right and wrong with that. Shoot blight is when the growing tip is attacked and turns spotted or bad. So these are all just examples of different ways. So looking at them a little bit more, if you looked at a leaf like this, or if I looked at it, I'd say, well, that looks like a leaf spot. And it could be a bacteria, it could be a fungus. I know because of, where I took the University of Florida picture from, that this is a bacterial leaf spot here, but it looks just like a fungal one. We're going to have to look a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit deeper to figure out which it is. Here's another leaf spot. This is a fungus, and that is on a squash leaf. And this is kind of moving towards becoming what we would call a leaf blight. So individual little spots become individual big spots. They all merge together to cover entire leaves. At that point, it's a leaf blight. This is a kind of blurry picture here of a stem, and this is a kind of a bad spot on the stem that's caused by bacteria. So this would be a stem canker. Root rots can affect plants, everything from turf grass to trees to landscape plants. When they affect little seedlings and your seeds, they germinate, they come up, they sprout, they're starting to grow, they have two leaves, and all of a sudden, all your seedlings, boom, fall over dead. That's called damping off. And this is usually caused by a fungus or a water mold in the soil that's attacked the roots and killed the roots. And the seedling is very small, so it doesn't take a whole lot to kill the little seedling's roots. And the seedling either falls over from being attacked at the roots, or the picture on the left here is Pythium. It attacks the stem right above the soil level. It will kill the seedlings and have them fall over. That's because the soil was infected with fungal disease. So diseases can be kind of difficult sometimes to figure out whether it's an actual disease. Might be a nutrient deficiency, might be spray damage, because keep in mind, people who use any kind of herbicides or weed killers in their yard, if you're spraying them and that spray lands on a healthy plant's leaves, it will cause little spots, little brown spots, and it becomes really difficult to diagnose it and figure out exactly what it is. For any commercial people we have on here, homeowners that really need to know what their disease problems are, commercial growers, University of Florida has the UF Plant Disease Clinic, and they will take samples and all the information you have for them, pictures. They ask a lot of questions, and the more information you give them, the better they're going to be able to diagnose what your problem is. And there is the link to the Plant Disease Clinic for if you want more information about how to send a sample in and get it properly diagnosed. So looking at some of the big picture items behind what causes disease outbreaks and what doesn't, and what kind of steps you can take to help avoid disease problems. Keep in mind, there's certain things that really contribute to disease issues. And the classic thing, if you ever take a plant pathology class, one of the first things we go over is the disease triangle. And these are the three things that you need to have plant disease. And the more you have of each one of them, the worse your disease problems are going to be. So to have a plant disease, you have to have a susceptible host or a plant that can catch a disease. you have to have a pathogen or the actual fungi, bacteria, or virus that's going to cause the disease. And you have to have a favorable, conducive environment. That's the environment that the pathogen or disease really, really likes. And there's a couple different ways of looking at this. The little simple diagram on the left is how, when I was going to school, it was always in the textbooks. But there's some other ways that you can look at this that might give you a little bit more insight. The picture on the right is using circles, and the more susceptible your host is, the more pathogen you have, and the more perfect the current environment is, the more those circles all overlap and the more disease you're going to have in the center. But with the traditional triangle, a pathogen can be, like I said, a fungus, a bacteria, a virus. It could be mycoplasmas and spiroplasmas. Those are bacterial-like organisms that cause diseases. The host can be a susceptible either crop. I'm growing green beans, I'm growing squash, and it's susceptible to this certain disease. It might just be a cultivar or a variety of it. Oh, I grew this type of watermelon, and this specific variety of watermelon is very susceptible to a certain disease. This other one is not as susceptible to it. And then when it comes to environment, the different things you need to look at is the air temperature, soil temperature, the soil fertility, soil type, soil pH. Some of these diseases are much worse at certain pHs and not a problem at other pHs. The recent rainfall, relative humidity is very, very important, and soil moisture. So a newer version of this is Maz's disease pyramid, which shows the pathogen, the plant, the environment, and also takes into consideration time. Because if those things are all perfectly aligned, over time, you're going to have a little disease. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And now it's going to become more of a problem for you. So perfect example of disease and how all these things tie in together. Picture here is of a plant, a very, very common landscape hedge plant called Indian hawthorn. And for many years, builders would put Indian hawthorn in people's landscape, in the planting beds around the house. And Indian hawthorn has always been very susceptible to a fungal disease called entomosporium. This fungus really, really likes conditions where it's warm, it's humid, and it's very, very wet. So that normally happens here in Central Florida, at least during the summer. So every summer, we would always get lots of pictures and phone calls of, I have a bush out in front of my house and it's got all these spots on the leaves now. What is the problem? We tell them, okay, you have Indian hawthorn. It has entomosporium, leaf spot. And because you have perfect conditions, that is why you now have spots all over the leaves. And these spots get bigger and worse. And eventually you end up with a lot of leaf drop. And the bushes will look pretty unsightly by the end of summer. Now, they have developed new varieties of Indian hawthorn. If you really have your heart set on having them in your landscape, they have varieties now that are disease resistant. If you get those and plant those, they, as a general rule, will not get spots during the summer. They may get a few spots, but they're not going to have really bad problems with entomosporium leaf spot. So that's an example of, if you have the new variety, it's not an appropriate host, so you're going to have far less disease. So some cures for plant diseases, if you're thinking like, all right, Bill, now I understand plant diseases and I have plants in my yard that have diseases. What do I spray on them to fix all my problems? Well, guys, there's no silver bullets. There really is no perfect cure for plant diseases, whether it's a fungus, whether it's a bacteria. Like I said, viruses, there is no cure at all. The only cure for viruses is if it's a virus that can possibly spread to other healthy plants, and it's one that's going to kill the plants, you need to pull the plant up and properly dispose of it. So hopefully insects won't spread the virus to your other healthy plants. But with any kind of plant disease issues, the best way to go is through prevention. because it's the best and by far the cheapest way to help control diseases. Fungal pathogens can be controlled with fungicides, but they are not a guaranteed cure-all. Most fungicides are designed to be used as preventative sprays. So if you have a plant and all the leaves are brown and there's nothing but spots on it and the plant's starting to wilt and fall over, a fungicide will not fix it and turn it back to a perfect healthy plant like maybe it was. For homeowner controls, bacteria, really the only bactericide or control for bacterial problems is going to be copper fungicide, but it works well, and copper fungicides work very well as a fungicide. Also, we've used them for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and they're still very effective. So with fungicides, be aware that most of them are protectants. They have to be applied and used before you have a disease outbreak. If you say, well, when am I going to get a disease outbreak? Well, it depends. If your plant, if its most common problem is a fungus, like for example, the Indian hawthorns, now you know that that is a fungus. It's entomosporium leaf spot. It gets the worst during the summer when things get really hot, when it starts to rain a lot, when it's really humid. So if I was going to use a fungicide on my old variety Indian hawthorns in my flower bed, I would probably try to apply that fungicide before they start to get leaf spots, because now that fungicide is going to protect the leaves and help stop that fungus from basically germinating and emerging on the leaf of the plant and then penetrating the plant's cuticle and starting to cause brown spots and disease. There are a few systemic fungicides, but very, very few that are available on the homeowner market. So you really can't depend on them to help with your disease problems. But some of the cultural controls that you could do to help prevent a lot of different fungal and bacterial diseases is proper irrigation. So water your plants, not too much, not too little, grow healthy plants. Don't irrigate your plants in the evening, because now your plants sit there wet all night long. If it's spring or getting into summer, now it's humid, it's above 70 degrees, it's warm. You just soak down your plants, they're sitting there wet all night long. A lot of fungal diseases absolutely love that situation. So water your plants as close to dawn as you can, because when the sun comes up, the leaves are going to dry off, and now you're going to have fewer disease problems. Sanitation, if you get leaves that get spots, they turn brown, the leaves fall off, pick those leaves up, throw them in the trash because they're covered with fungal spores. Host resistance, if there's a variety that's immune or doesn't get the disease that you struggle with, that's a real bonus. Plant plants at the correct time of year. Control the weeds, because diseases can sometimes hide out in the weeds and now they move over to your plants. And control the insects. All those are little steps that are really good ways to help control plant diseases. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm going to show you a couple of real life scenarios and examples of diseases here. Citrus canker used to be a huge problem in Florida. It's still here. It never went away. It's just we didn't worry about it as much after we got citrus greening, which we're going to talk about next. Citrus canker is an example of a bacterial disease, and it is spread by windborne rain and contaminated equipment. So what spreads water and rain out in the trees and outside the best? Hurricanes and tropical storms. So hurricanes came through Florida, blew the bacteria from tree to tree to tree, spreading the infection. So citrus canker is still with us, but it's a bacteria. Like I said, bacteria are a smaller percentage of disease problems, but if you're a citrus grower and you have citrus canker, maybe it's your biggest problem. Citrus greening is another bacterial problem that infects and can kill citrus trees. It is spread by a very tiny insect, the Asian citrus psyllid, and that bacteria gets inside the tree, inside the stem, inside the branches, and plugs up the vascular system of citrus trees. So now the tree can't take the fertilizer and the nutrients that are in the soil up the tree into the leaves, and the leaves turn yellow, and the tree declines and dies. So that's another very common bacterial disease that we need to deal with. Tomato spotted wilt virus is a very common virus for tomatoes, peppers, and is spread by thrips, which are very, very tiny little insects. What happens is the leaves turn brown, they fall off. At first, it may look just like a fungal problem because tomatoes have a lot of fungal disease issues also. So this is a good example of a virus that will kill your plants that you can't control, that can kind of look very similar to a fungus and be kind of difficult to diagnose and figure out what the problem is. Tomato yellow leaf curl virus is another virus that is a problem with tomatoes. This picture does not do it justice because I've seen people bring this to the office before. The leaves can sometimes be a bright neon yellow. You can see like 20 feet away, bright yellow. And the tomato leaves are really tiny. They're really shrunken down and dwarfed. And this is a viral disease that's spread by whiteflies between tomato plants. Your tomato plant gets it. You can never get rid of it. Get rid of the plant, otherwise it will spread to all of your plants eventually. And just another example of a virus that may be a problem. So in 2 minutes here, let's go through a couple of just kind of examples of diseases and disease groups and real life situations here that I have had to deal with in the past. So mango decline is something that occurs in all mango production regions. It's a disease syndrome, which means it's kind of confusing. Researchers are like, what's wrong with the mango trees? So they started testing them and looking. It's like, oh my gosh, it's got this and this and this and this. Why does it have so many problems? What is going on here? Mangoes, trees that get this disease complex or syndrome can see fruit yields go down by more than 50%. And researchers have not really identified one specific cause, but if you understand the big picture going on behind this and how steps you could take to help avoid diseases, it'll all kind of make sense. So some of the symptoms of mango decline is dieback of the terminal shoot. So the brand new little growing point on the tree will die back. You get gummosis, which is oozing on branches and limbs. That's a picture on the right there of that. Vascular discoloration. If you slice off a branch, the inside is going to be discolored. The leaves turn yellow around the edges. The roots die. So there's a lot going on here. So when they looked at these trees, they found Alternaria, which is a fungus, Cladosporium, which is another fungus that attacks the leaves. Calototricum attacks the fruit. It makes like dark sunken spots on it. Fusarium, which can attack the leaves or the fruit. Phomopsis is another fungus that attacks the leaves. Several other fungi, some which are normally just sit on the leaves of the fruit and they never hurt the tree, but when the tree gets this complex, it starts to attack it. And the very last one there is a species of nematode that starts spreading disease to the roots, also causing root problems. So they came to the conclusion that some of the possible causes of mango decline is nutrient deficiencies, cold damage, drought, and poor fertility. So what usually causes those things boils down to poor care and poor management of your mangoes. And when it comes to cold damage, either not providing protection or not planting the right plant in the right place. If you're trying to grow mangoes in Jacksonville or the Panhandle, you're going to have problems unless you're able to keep them warm. And when it comes to drought, if you're raising the plants and the trees correctly, you're going to provide irrigation when you need to. poor fertility, you're going to fertilize with a quality fertilizer. So a lot of this goes back to care and management. So to wrap it up, here is a real world example, a picture I sent of a citrus tree. And the question was simply, what's wrong with my orange tree? And I'm thinking, what's not wrong with your orange tree? There's a lot going on there. That poor thing's looked bad for a very long time and most likely has citrus greening. Uh, I see discoloration on the fruit, so it has insect problems. It hasn't been weeded, so it has weed competition. My guess is it was never fertilized, it was never watered when it needs it during dry periods. So there's a lot going on there. You can see the damaged fruit right there. So um, I just listed off all the different possible things that could be wrong with it, any one of them which could have caused the death of the tree or the serious decline. So to wrap it up, why do some people seem to have more plant disease problems than others? It's because they're trying to grow the wrong plant in the wrong place, or plants that just don't grow in Florida, because they are going to have by far the worst disease problems, because they're the most stressed by the heat and humidity that we get for a long period of time throughout most of Florida during the summer. A lot of diseases can be seasonal, so you'll have a big outbreak that's going to have a huge impact on your plants, but then the rest of the year, it's not going to have a huge impact. So some people might think like, why do I have these diseases? It's like, be patient, take some steps, and the disease is going to go away for the other 9 months of the year. And then poor management, you need to keep an eye on irrigation, sanitation, proper pruning, raising healthy plants. Healthy plants are much better able to survive and fend off and protect themselves from a lot of different disease and insect problems. So that was a lot to cover in just a little bit here. There's my contact information, and I don't always know the answer to every question right off the top of my head. But us here at Extension, we have all the researchers up there in Gainesville to draw upon. And if we don't know what the answer is, we'll help you figure it out. So there's all my contact information right there. And let me go into stopping sharing here, and I see we got a couple questions here. Did you guys save the ones in here for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna read some out. So
Okay, okay.
we'll start out with a question from Rebecca. How do you treat city mold on a buttonwood tree?
If you have actual, for real sooty mold, what that is caused by is insects. So there are certain species of insects, aphids, whiteflies, mealybugs, and certain species of scales. When they're feeding on your plant, they poke into the plant, extract the plant juices, and they poop all over your plant. When that lands on leaves, sooty mold is a fungus that just grows on their waste products on the leaf. Sooty mold doesn't hurt plants. What sooty mold does is tells you you have an insect problem. So you need to get a hand lens, go out there and hunt, and chances are on the stems or the undersides of leaves, you have an underlying insect problem that if you control it and get rid of the aphids or the mealybugs or whatever is there, the sooty mold will go away. Now, if you have discolored leaves, if you take a garden hose and just lightly spray the leaves, a lot of times sooty mold washes right off.
Okay. Next question is uh Cape Jasmine leaves turn yellow and all the leaves fall off? Question mark, question mark.
I don't know. There's a lot of different things. I love telling people that. There's a lot of different things that could cause that. There's certain plants that are just fussy. Good example of that is hibiscus. Hibiscus leaves will turn yellow and drop off if it's too dry, or if it's too wet, or if it's too hot, or if it's too cold. They're just fussy. They're only happy if they're in this little range. So if your jasmine was exposed to too much cold, and I don't know where you live in the state, that could be cold damage. A lot of times that's uh, a water status problem, either too too dry or too wet. It may be an insect pest problem also. You'd have to go out there and look at it very carefully. Undersides of the leaves is where a lot of insects will hang out. So there's a couple different things that can cause that. Honestly, most commonly is going to be water, either too wet or too dry.
Is the best thing to really figure that out to take a sample into local extension office?
Yes, thank you for giving that plug. Uh, each and every one of our 67 counties here in Florida has an extension office. So wherever you live, you have an office also. Contact them, find out when they have a master gardener on staff, and take in a sample and pictures. Lots of pictures. Guys, almost everybody has one of these things. Take a lot of pictures because this way you could take it with you. Take up close pictures, take far away pictures that show us the entire plant or tree. And between the two, it really goes a long way to making it easier for us to figure out what's wrong with your plant.
Okay, next question. Is citrus fruit still edible if it has a citrus canker? Is there long-term damage to the tree?
If it has canker, it is still edible. It's just unmarketable. Now, in case you were wondering if it has citrus greening, that affects the fruit also. The fruit will get lopsided and apparently taste horrible. But if your tree has greening, it's probably not making fruit any longer. But with citrus canker, it damages trees. It has to get really, really bad before it kills the tree outright. So the reason why citrus canker was such a huge problem was a huge problem for growers because fruits that are damaged by canker are not sellable, but they are safe to eat.
Another citrus question here. What would you pre-treat your citrus trees with?
It depends on what your goal is. Um, if you're trying to prevent citrus psyllid feeding, which citrus psyllid is a little insect that can vector citrus greening to your tree, you want to use a systemic insecticide. That's something that you either spray on the plant or water in, and it's taken up into the tree or the plant to kill insects when they start feeding on it. The problem is sometimes these insects will feed on the plant and infect it with the disease before the insecticide kills the insects. So a lot of times, if you're trying to deal with plant diseases and limiting the spread of plant diseases, controlling the insect vector is not an effective way to go. If you're trying to prevent plant diseases, get appropriate fungicide. Make sure it's labeled to be used on the type of plant, the crop that you want to use it on, and spray it before you think that you're going to get a fungus outbreak. So you really have to look at what is your goal, what are you trying to prevent with this preventative treatment, and look at it that way.
Okay, we have a few questions about fungus, and the first one is, are all molds in the classification of fungi?
Mold is just a common name. So that's there is no absolute scientific application of the term mold. So when we're talking about plants, for most of us, if you look at a plant and say it looks like it has some kind of mold on it, that's most likely a fungus. Molds that you get like on a wall or inside your house or something like that could be a fungus. It could be a bacteria also. So the term mold is used kind of very loosely by people.
Okay, and then with a fungal disease, would you see more dark wilted areas on leaves than if it were a bacterial disease?
Not necessarily. Both can cause very, very similar symptoms. And a lot of fungi don't necessarily cause dark spots, or they don't cause dark spots all the time. Right now, there's a very common fungus that you'll find affecting plants called powdery mildew. And this is white, and it's kind of unusual. It's on the top of the leaf, and it actually prefers slightly cooler temperatures. So winter, early spring, fall is when you're going to see the biggest problems with that. Not so much during the summer. It will get actually too hot where it really disfavors the fungus then. So they come in all shapes and sizes and colors, and the bacteria and the fungi, at just looking at it visually, is going to look very much the same.
Okay, and I think we are going to have our last question here. Any advice for maintaining areas that are meant to be pesticide or chemical free? Could biological controls like trichoderma violate this condition?
It all depends. And this, when it comes to it it all depends on where you're applying them. So if you, in the case of somebody who's certified organic, they're a certified organic grower, there are certain rules you have to follow and lists of things that you can and cannot use. If you're just a homeowner who wants to be more organic, you decide what you use and what you don't, and you could be as organic as you want to be or not. There are the exciting thing is nowadays there are a lot of different preventatives and controls in the world, different bacteria, different fungi that will actually fight against the bad ones and protect your plants. There's trichoderma, things that you can apply to the soil that will actually help prevent the roots from bad fungi, things that you can spray on your plants that are going to infect the bad insects, whiteflies, and other things, kill them without killing everything in your yard and in your neighborhood. So the best thing to do is educate yourself on any product you're thinking about using. Look through the product label. That tells you everything you need to know. Uh, Tells you the application rate, where to apply it, where not to apply it. So look up all the information you can find on the product you're thinking about buying, and that's going to tell you everything you need to know. But there are a lot of really great products out there now that, unless you start educating yourself in this area, you would never know are out there. So many people, unfortunately, only know of um, the traditional pesticides, this and that. When you go to a big box store, there's big displays of them in the spring.
Okay, well, Bill, thank you so much for hosting today. We really appreciated having you. And we are going to have our next webinar, as we said, on March 4th at 11 a.m. And thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you at that next webinar.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Claire.